What's going on, guys? Chunky back here on my channel. If you didn't know already, I'm probably the last person on the internet to have reviewed this film. Check out this awesome Red Dead Redemption Hellboy crossover t-shirt. That is how much I love Hellboy. That is how much I love these deep cuts. I do love those Ron Perlman films, to be quite honest with you. The first one's actually quite good and has aged quite well. And even though the second one's a bit sillier, I can actually enjoy it for what it's worth. So as you can imagine, I was really excited to see this reboot. And first of all, I do have some good things to say about this film, but the brief plot. So, Hellboy, being from Hell, is part of the Bureau for Paranormal Investigation, or something like that. And they basically just fight supernatural and paranormal beings. Amongst what they're doing, a queen known as the Blood Queen basically gets resurrected from her eternal prison and wants to bring back a lot of these supernatural creatures to basically rule the world instead as the superior beings. That is really all you need to know, because the story isn't really worth anything else.
Okay.
Now, this review is in fact a review of two halves. I did like a few things about this film, but the second half of this review is going to be the things I didn't like. Now, obviously, it goes without saying that I'm going to spoil things, but I'm also going to explain to you probably why you shouldn't watch this film if you're a Hellboy fan before doing so. So stay tuned for that. Firstly, the things I did like about this film. Number one, David Harbour as Hellboy. Now, everyone loves Ron Perlman. Don't get me wrong. Ron Perlman is, in fact, the embodiment of Hellboy. I'm not too sure. He might actually be Hellboy. We're still yet to confirm that one. But at the end of the day, David Harbour should be given respect for his role as Hellboy because it was something fresh. I actually think he sort of understood the character of Hellboy, and he hit those main beats. The sarcastic, witty nature, the low, grumbling voice. He almost is a kid in many respects, and I think they did get that down a little bit, as well as the look. The face, obviously, is a bit more exaggerated with the red eyes and the rusty horns and the slightly larger jaw. But Hellboy is just that in the comics. He's very exaggerated. He is a large being. No one really points this out in the comics, in the movies I should say, but in the comics, he has very small legs being descended from basically a goat character. So he does have very small calves and ankles, but the actors don't really have small legs, so why don't people comment on that? So overall, David Harbour's both look and performance is actually something to be respected, and I enjoyed a fresh take on the Hellboy character. Secondly, the action. Now, not all of it, but some of it was actually a good blend of gore and comedy in the same scene. It actually took me back to one of my favourite horror films of all time, Evil Dead 2, that masterfully blends horror and comedy elements, or gore and comedy elements. And it did work where gory things are going on, but there's a reason for it as part of the story. And there's some witty dialogue at the same time. And the action is somewhat stylish. Unfortunately, not a lot of it is. A lot of it is either one or the other, which is really stupidly funny for no reason within the story's context, or really violent for no reason other than to show you violence. That is the problem with I'd say, bad horror or bad violence on screen. To be honest with you, the thing that I liked the most, without spoiling it just yet, was actually the last scene of the film. The last scene of the film is what I wanted the entire film to be. The reason why I say that is because there's stylized and witty, or I should say stylized action, combined with witty dialogue, combined with gore that actually served a purpose, combined with a really cool soundtrack. It kind of blew my mind how good this ending scene was in comparison to the 2 hours of mediocre shit that I just watched.
I'm on your side! Sorry, my bad.
That's it for the good. Now, the one problem I have with this film is it's setting up something okay, and then it cuts to unnecessary shit. And it actually cuts between those two characters, Hellboy and the Blood Queen, to sort of paint a picture of how they're sort of slowly coming together until they're admittedly supposed to be one. The film is trying to create an interesting parallel. We're supposed to keep track on both these characters almost to the same degree when the scenes are just placed in the wrong spots. Because what follows is admittedly one of the better action scenes in the film that infuses that gore and that comedy and the wit that Hellboy is capable of. But it's not helped when you break the momentum with a stupid scene about the Blood Queen that has nothing to do with the scene we just watched. And when there's no reason for it, the editing comes off as jarring. The dialogue comes off as that much more stupid because you're trying to keep track of two different situations. So you be very careful about how you give the audience your exposition. And thirdly, when we come back to the action scene, we're not as invested because we're trying to make sense of what the hell we just saw and what the hell we're seeing now. And then the dialogue is unfortunately a bit too pushy. There's a lot of exposition. The problem is that we don't really get enough of an exposition of Hellboy and more the exposition of everything else that is going on in this world. If we don't understand Hellboy and his motivations, we're not going to care enough to want to hear these explanations about all these paranormal beings. Hence why I said before, this is a film for fans. And even then, because of the film's shoddy narrative and storytelling, it doesn't really make sense for us either. There are things that are forced, like the supporting characters. I mean, for the casual fans, there's a character that partakes in like the mystic arts, it can speak to dead people, and there's a character that can turn into a cheetah/werewolf. They're with Hellboy along for the ride, but they're not really important until it's too late. You could commend it because it's letting Hellboy take the stage, but these characters aren't giving anything of substance, so why the fuck have them there? If you don't know Hellboy going in, they do their best to explain the world, but for some reason forget to explain the character. They do explain him, obviously giving him an origin story, which is in the first one, but they don't explain why he acts like a kid. They don't explain why he has the relationship he does with his father. They don't explain why he even fucking shaves his horns. You can't expect casual audiences to just assume things about an imaginary character or a character with so much lore and backstory when the casual fans are expected to be given small little details on why Hellboy is the way he is. They freaking explain it in the first film. Like, hey, the dude was found in World War II. He doesn't age like we do. Hence, 60 years later, he still looks and acts like a kid because as far as he's aging, he's in like his 20s. They don't even use the hand. The hand is the worst part about it. One of Hellboy's biggest character traits is that big fucking rock hand, the big metal hand, and his big gun. Yes, they use his big gun. It's part of the story. His hand is not. His hand is the key to hell. He opens hell in this film without his hand. So already, for the casual fans, they explain nothing about this hand. They actually give this hand a big fuck you middle finger because he just says, well, someone says to him, what's the hand for? And he's like, it smashes stuff real good. That is not the answer. That's the answer at the start of the film. By the end of the film, we have to finally realize the hand is more important than that. And it is. Show respect to that damn hand. But that's sort of where it is, guys. It's sort of just a hodgepodge of small little fan service moments and the rest of it just shit. If you're not a fan, don't watch this film. Quite simply, don't really go near it. It's not really doing well. I understand that. I knew that before going in. If you're a Hellboy fan, give it a watch, but I can't say it's an okay watch because after it, you're going to feel the same way I did, which is just disappointed, and I probably won't watch it again. And if I do, I'll be pissed drunk when I do. So, yeah, figure it out that way. Go watch those Ron Perlman movies. Even the second Ron Perlman movie, The Golden Army, is actually better than this. So that's sort of what we're looking at here. Thanks very much, guys. I know this review took a long time, but if you're interested in Hellboy, thank you for sticking with me all this time. Leave a like down below, leave a comment down below, and most of all, subscribe. And if you want to stay updated with all my future content, click that bell button down below. Thanks, guys. I've been Chunky. Thanks for stopping by my world, and I'll see you soon. Take care.